All right, we're back on We Want Winners right as the new season begins. On the screen over by me as we're recording this, I have the Thursday night game, the season opener. Rod, you have all your fantasy teams set up and everything?
Yeah, I think so.
That's always the thing on these Thursday night games. Like, there's going to be at least 3 or 4 games this year where on Thursday, at the last second, I'm going to remember that I didn't switch my lineup for Thursdays. Okay, so before we actually get into talking about the 49ers, talking about Nick Bosa, talking about the new season, how was your trip?
It was excellent. I was telling my dad when he picked me up. I don't know what I purposely didn't do a whole lot of research about Tanzania, and I wanted to be surprised, and I was. It was delightful, all the way through. Everything, the people, the scenery, the food. It was all just wonderful. And then so I did we went on safari, and that was great. We saw the Big Five, which is we actually saw a rhino on the last day, which is like one of the hardest ones to get. And we saw that. So that was great. Then we went to Zanzibar. The beaches there, beautiful. Really, really opulent. It was great. And then yesterday I spent the day in Istanbul, and that was wild. You've got this, hundreds of year old, ancient city. Really, Istanbul is an ancient city. Yet you've got all these modern skyscrapers and whatnot, and that juxtaposition was just like, that's something that has always fascinated me. Here in the United States, we have very few cities like that where you can look back 300-400 years and know that at this spot right here, something was happening. I grew up here in the Bay Area, and then a lot of time in Las Vegas, and anything that's 25 years old is getting bulldozed and putting up something new. But it was really cool to like see this 500-year-old mosque next to this ultra modern skyscraper. So it was just a wonderful educational recharging trip. But I'm glad to be back with you guys talking 49er football.
Well, it's amazing. What you just said is amazing, but also the fact that you could be in Istanbul yesterday and be back home and be on a podcast
right
to me. That's crazy.
Yeah, halfway around the world.
Oh
and
my
then
gosh.
Here to talk 49er football.
I'm actually surprised you're as alert as you seem to be.
Yeah,
that traveling would wipe me out.
Yeah, I'm one who does not have a problem sleeping on airplanes. So I slept. It was a 12-hour flight back here from Istanbul to SFO, and I slept for a good half of it.
Oh, nice.
There was this one baby that was next to me. He like cried the entire time. I was first angry and then like really impressed with his stamina. He literally cried for 12 hours.
Oh man, that's tough. That's tough.
Yeah, poor mom.
Kid. Poor kid, poor mom.
Yeah.
All right, so we buried the whole lead of the podcast here because Nick Bosa has signed his new deal, and that means the 49ers are ready to go. The Trey Lance situation is fully behind them now. Not that Trey himself was a distraction, but just the idea that this third pick in the draft is kind of hanging over your head as a team, and they decided to find a place for him to go. And according to I think it was Barrows, I guess Shanahan and Lynch kind of was like, hey, you're going to be the third guy, and we're fine with you being the third guy, but Trey wanted out. And good for him, because being the third guy on this team, Trey was just going to be playing a lot of scout quarterback in practice. And hopefully, even though I don't want to see him on the field with Dallas, and if we see a lot of Trey in Dallas, and that means that Dak's season may have ended prematurely, so not sure about that. But overall, that is over. The Bosa thing is over. They're ready to go. They open up this Sunday in a little bit of a, I don't want to say this is a trap game or anything, but I think the Steelers might be a little bit better than 49er fans think that they are heading into Pittsburgh, 10 o'clock game. I think it's going to be a really tough game there. And so I'm excited for that. But I guess let's just start with Nick. We were in the Discord all week saying, what's going to happen? When is this thing going to happen? Or do the Niners have the money? Blah, 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 blah. So they did it. And from what it looks like, now we don't have all of the details on the contract, but for this season, he has a base salary of 18.9. The overall signing bonus was 50 million. 5 years, 170. The thing that we don't know is how the guarantee breaks down. It looks to be about 75% or so, maybe a little bit less than that, is guaranteed. So 122 million is guaranteed for him. So we're talking about, this is quarterback money for one Nick Bosa here, and the Niners are investing in him really thoroughly. And, honestly, the reason why they can do this, and it doesn't really happen any other way, is the fact that they have the last pick in last year's draft as the starting quarterback, and he doesn't have to be extended anytime in the near future. And then the one guy who as a rookie, who did take up a lot of the cap for a rookie, he's now shipped off. So I think with those two things, it enabled them to do this deal. But this is like I think most teams in the NFL have short windows until you sort of figure out ways to move people and bring new people in. You remember when after the Super Bowl year against the Chiefs in 19, Buckner had to go because they just couldn't afford his new contract. And so do you look at it the same way as me, which is like, we got a 2-year window and we got to have like some really, really lucky injury years, but they really need to take advantage of these 2 years and just go for it. They just got to go for it. This is like next 2 years is like Super Bowl or bust for them, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like they were able to dodge a short-term bullet, because now with what they did with the other two contract renegotiations, moving that money forward, this year, next year, we should be pretty good. And then 25, there are going to be decisions that need to be made, like you say. So yeah, I think this year and next year really are in terms of this window, every year is kind of Super Bowl or bust, I guess. But for this particular team, as currently constructed, it really starts to get funky after next season. So definitely, we are in a win now mode. If we weren't before, we definitely are now. I'm really shocked, honestly, that this is the kind of money that I kind of thought that Nick was looking for, but I didn't think that the Niners would go this, do a deal like this for this kind of money for this length of time. I thought if he got the money he was looking for, he would get it on a shorter term deal.
Mm-hmm.
But they stepped up, and the guarantee is what is really is really kind of staggering, actually. That's it's unprecedented for a defensive player to get that much guaranteed money. So kudos to them for stepping up and doing that. And I, for one, think it's absolutely the right move to make. You want to lock this dude up throughout his prime, and I would not have wanted to be in the business of giving him like a 3-year deal and then redoing this with a 28-year-old Nick Bosa. I wouldn't, but I kind of thought, from a cash standpoint, that might be where they would end up. But now he's here with us through 29, through year 2029, which is he's age 32 at that point. So we've got him locked up, throughout his prime. Now we still don't really know, as you said, how the guarantee shakes out, and then when, um, if there are outs and places where, they can get out of this deal. We don't have any idea what that looks like, but it kind of looks like he's going to be here, at least, like you say, for the short term future. He's definitely going to be here. So, that's good for him and good for the Niners, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like I said, this right now, and I wonder now, I don't know if Shanahan and Lynch think about it this way, but, the whole goal is to take shots and have a chance and be, on the list of, several teams who actually have a chance. In the NFL, it's a little bit different because it's a one game, elimination essentially. And so, you see teams who shouldn't have really any business beating a top team, and they can, and then they advance, and that's why the NFL is king. Just that possibility to happen. So, but I do wonder, you think Lynch and Shanahan look at this from the pressure standpoint the same way, in that we got 2 years to really get over the hump and win this title? Because we heard whispers before last year, that Lynch was thinking about, going to TV. And it sounds like his reasoning for sticking around is because they hadn't toppled the mountain yet. Like, that's he really thinks that this team has a shot at doing that. So he stuck around and he's still here. Shanahan Shanahan is the coach version of Steve Young, I think. And here's why I say that. Because of that Super Bowl against New England, where he was the offensive coordinator, he's kind of got this monkey on his back as far as, can he win the big one? And I think some of the national media probably cares a little bit more about that than we do, because we've seen some really, really good teams. And I don't think, I guess you could say the Chiefs Super Bowl, they did have the lead. Some of that was QB play, I think. But the idea that these guys have like a 2-year window of a great chance, like I wonder if they feel that pressure, that it's like this year and next year are like just the best opportunities to do it.
I would think that two ways. That one, of course, I think they're smart guys, and they know, they've been around, and they've both been a part of really good teams, and they know, I would imagine that they know that this is kind of a special team, and that, to think that it's going to always be like this, or they're going to always have this kind of collection of talent, just from a cap standpoint, having this collection of talent is hard to do in today's NFL. They had, I think it was like 8 of the top 100 players on this team, something like that, 7 or 8, which was by far the most in the league.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, it's, it is kind of imperative they get it done now. But also, I don't know about Lynch more so. I would think Lynch more so than Shanahan. I think Shanahan's a lifer. I don't foresee. I mean, I think that even if he washes out here, he's going to be doing this for a while. It's Lynch that seems to have options in terms of TV and other stuff that he could do, that if, he gets tired of the, seems like he's got easier ways to make money than, dealing with the nonsense that goes along with running a team. But Shanahan, I don't, I don't see him being a talking head on
No,
TV.
I don't think so either.
I think he's going to be coaching. He's going to be a ball coach, for his own. And he's, that's the thing that is kind of frustrating me when you talk about people him not being able to give it a hump. He's like 43 years old. He's super young.
Yep.
He started super young. So I just think, who knows, he could be a Dick Vermeil type or a John Madden type and quit early, but I I just don't see it.
I mean, just look at his pops.
Yeah, I think he's going to be in it for a long, long time. But that doesn't so I would hope that they both kind of have a long-term perspective that, I mean, while you want to seize the moment, and it's like, especially with a team like this that with the collection of talent, you want to win now, but I mean, it's not like if you don't win it, it's like I wouldn't be, sitting here right now, but on the eve of this season, if it's another NFC championship, I'm not of the camp that says that we should blow everything up at this point. I think as long as we are continuing to get better and we continue to see improvement, I just think you just ride it out. But obviously that would, sitting here as I sit here now, if we're in February and we don't make it to the Super Bowl, that would be pretty disappointing. It would obviously depend on why we didn't make it. If it's a slew of injuries or something like that, that's different. But yeah, this is a team that you would expect to be playing in Las Vegas in February, I would think.
Do you sense that Shanahan? So I kind of want to go back to what you were saying about, blow it up or whatever. A previous version of this franchise run by Eddie and Carmen would probably think a little bit differently, right? If, Bill Walsh kind of got, he didn't get shown the door, but there was so much pressure on him that he needed some time off even after winning a Super Bowl. And the pressure was so high. And I agree with you, though. I do wonder if Jed sees it as, I gotta get one. Like, I really gotta get one for this franchise as an owner. It will be better for the overall value of that franchise too, because we've talked about it before. Jed is not one of the richest owners in the game. Mm-hmm. And he has also made some really terrible mistakes in the past. Now he seems to be way more accustomed to, sort of thinking these things through and using a bunch of really smart people to help him. Like he's made some questionable mistakes in the past, but not really of late. I do wonder from that standpoint, though, is, his uncle is pressing, the smartest mind in the history of the NFL for not winning championships when he thought he had the roster there. And if you're Jed and you're like, all right, guys, look at this roster. You said the NFL top 100. I listened to Bill Simmons, and he does this like sort of subjective player rating, and he's like, the 49ers have the best overall team based on that. And if you're Jed, you're like, look, we put it out there. We spent the money. It's out there. And if we don't win it, then what do you think he says?
Yeah, my question is, as we play this game a lot as sports fans, when we say, in all aspects, when you say, well, this guy, this top 10 shouldn't be this, or whatever it is, the sports argument is, my question always is, okay, so if we fire Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, who is the person that we're going to bring in to replace them? And I don't see anybody just out there that jumps out at me and says, well, that would be an obvious upgrade. Like, for example, if we had fired, if we did it last season and somebody like Sean Payton is out there, then okay, if you want to tell me that you're going to fire those two guys and you're going to bring in Sean Payton to run the show, okay. I mean, that's fine. He's got a track record but some people in New Orleans would say he didn't maximize Drew Brees. So look, I mean, I just think it's a winning championships is a tough business. And, the example I use a lot is Andy Reid. They ran him out on a rail in Philly because he couldn't win the big one. And then, he goes to Kansas City and the rest is history. So again, I don't know that sometimes that is the answer. We saw here as Warriors fans, moving on from Mark Jackson seemed to be, for a lot of reasons, the exact right move. So you can go both ways with it. It's just that, I think we're in a unique situation where everybody wants Kyle Shanahan or a part of the Kyle Shanahan offense. And you've got Kyle Shanahan. So do you fire him to bring in somebody else to run the Kyle Shanahan offense? Or do you just fire him and punt and go in a completely different direction? That would be my question. Is I would hate for it to be just to like get rid of him, just change for the sake of change, without any definitive plan on how you're going to move forward, and how that moving forward isn't just spinning our wheels and doing it just for the sake of doing it. I think they've done those guys have, we could look at some of their first round picks or whatnot, but overall, I think they've done a great job, especially when you go back and look at where the franchise was when they took it over in 2017 and the level of success that we've had over the past 5 seasons. It's hard to argue that they've done a great job. I mean, you could question the quarterback situation. You could question not drafting Mahomes or Watson. I mean, there are a lot of things, but my argument has been for all of those things that name me the franchise that you can't go back and look at decisions that they've made in hindsight and say, well, they should have done this instead of that. And well,
Every
that looks stupid, 3 years down the road. But in the moment, I'm a process over result kind of guy. And I have a hard time questioning their process with the possible exception of the whole Trey thing. It seems like their process has worked out pretty well. When you look at their drafting, overall, like I say, the higher picks haven't hit, but then they've hit some of the later ones. They've hit home runs with some of the later ones. So overall, the drafting situation it's a lot of art over science. There's nobody has the answer, that this is exactly how you do it in terms of draft picks. It's all kind of subjective. But yeah, I think they've done a good job, and I wouldn't, again, it depends on how the year plays out, but I have a hard time foreseeing a set of circumstances that would have me sitting at the end of the season saying, yeah, we need to get rid of these guys.
It would seem like, just based on Kyle's personality, that if the Niners decided to move on from him, it would be a sort of a, him not feeling like, everyone's on the same page or whatever. Because, you watch him speak and, he's not the most patient man in the world, and he's moving and he's got stuff going on, and he's total 100% head coach mentality. And I think I could see a situation down the line where, the upper management of Parag and Jed and those guys kind of take him for granted a little bit. And I could see where he would possibly want out at some point. But that point is not now, because he is here to coach a very talented team. And we'll get to the matchup with Pittsburgh in a second here. So while we were recording, Joe Burrows just signed a contract. 5 years, $275 million, 219 of it guaranteed. He's the highest paid player in NFL history right now. So some bucks, man. The NFL, the new TV deal they signed for 11 years. Like, the money is coming. These players are getting it. Not all the players are getting it, but the special players are getting it. I guess we're not going to have to worry about free agency stuff or not even free agency stuff, but the next deal until Brandon Ayuk. So if BA goes for 90 catches and 1,300 yards, we may be doing this all over again next year, but we're good for a whole year. We don't got to worry about that. All right, let's talk about this roster this weekend for the game. The Niners they do have a couple of little small injuries that, and I think the one that we were all worrying about the most was this kicker situation. Jake Moody had the quadricep injury, which I haven't heard anybody say this, but I kind of wonder if that's why he was struggling so much, especially with the kickoffs too, because he's got a big leg, and those kickoffs weren't great. So I wonder if the quadricep actually caused, or partially caused him to have such a bad couple of games there. But it looks like he's going to be okay. I know Zane Gonzales got put on the IR, or I guess what is the four game one? Yeah, whatever that was.
With the energy designation IR, or something like that.
But it looks like, I know they signed a kicker. Did they sign a kicker to the practice squad or something crazy like that? So there is some worry there for Jake, but I think everyone's crossing their fingers that he's going to be ready. And the one that I kind of like, he was limited in practice. Is it possible we see Ray McCloud this weekend?
Really? I had not heard that. I knew that he was on the roster, so he did not get any IR designation. But I thought that was the case with I was halfway around the world, so I'm not sure that Danny Gray is on the roster too, is my understanding, that they both were not designated injured reserve. So that would be great news if Ray could play. Have you heard anything about Kittle?
Kittle practiced.
Beautiful.
That's so good. Another, sort of limited, but he was practicing. So I think, crossing our fingers with Kittle there. The people who did not practice, Hufanga did not practice today, but he was limited yesterday. And Charvarius Ward also didn't practice today. He's got a heel injury. But I also saw something where they thought he would play. So, it looks like the injury piece. I know our guy John Feliciano, he was out because of illness. Burks, Gibson, Kittle, Mason, Ray, Moody, and Nick were all limited in participation for today. So it doesn't look like there's anything super worrisome for Sunday, but you never know. Like, these guys are gonna get on an airplane and they're gonna fly, to Pittsburgh, and then try and see if they're still okay. So I'm crossing my fingers that we can get all the way to Sunday morning and everybody is good to go, because man, it's gonna be fun to see that full roster in effect.
Yeah, for sure. Oh,
Shelvin just said that Zane was actually released with an injury settlement.
Oh, okay, cool. Good for him, I guess.
Yeah, so I guess that is also, because he's a relevant backup. He's somebody who's probably
a good kicker.
He's gonna kick this year, or if not because of injury. But all right, so predictions for this season. I think for us, we have big hopes. It's again, it's kind of hard to be Super Bowl or bust, I think, in this iteration of the NFL, unless you have Patrick Mahomes on your team. Super Bowl or bust is kind of tough to sort of think about because of the things that I said earlier. But if it's at least playoffs or bust for us. Like, the Niners have to be one of those 7 teams in the NFC to make the playoffs, and then you sort of go from there. But what if you were to if I was to throw you an over under at 11 wins, what would you do there?
11 wins is a really good number. It's a really good number. Because that's kind of where I'm at with it. I would go over, but I wouldn't feel good about it. I wouldn't feel good about it. I think 11 is the number. So I would, if I was holding a over 11 ticket, I would anticipate that I would be white knuckling it um in the in week 18, 17, and 18 as to whether or not I was going to cash. Um Again, I talk, and I guess that's part of being a fan. We don't seem to be as affected. We seem to be able to look at things pretty rationally. We've, um, you know, slow starts have been a thing
Yeah.
for this team. So that's why this weekend I posted something somewhere saying that, if I in the vein of you talking about Bill Simmons earlier, in the vein of Bill Simmons, I would feel much better at plus 4.5, teasing it by six, a 6.5 teaser on the 49ers than I would at -2. I early season, still got concerns about, there was a fan that was chirping today about how we're just going to run the ball down the Pittsburgh Steelers' throat. And I'm like, from the center over to the right tackle, I don't know how you could be that confident that we're going to be able to consistently run the ball. Our center is just kind of meh. If you look up inconsistent in the dictionary, there's a picture of Spencer Burford sitting right there. And then that's the biggest question mark about McKivitz is, can he adequately replace McGlinchey in the run game? I mean, he's a man mountain as a pass blocker, but it remains to be seen if he can be dominant in the run game. And I think, especially our fan base, because I'm the more and more you hear our fan base talk, I like question whether or not they even watch our games, but I'm sure they don't watch anybody else's games. And I think they're going to be, I think this Pittsburgh Steelers team is going to be a sneaky team all season long. If you think they're going to be, I don't think they're going to be a pushover. If you've watched what Mike Tomlin has been able to do over the course of his career, his teams, they don't beat themselves. So I expect them to be, a very good football team, and that we're going to have to go out there and beat. And so I don't see us going out there and just, beating them by 3 scores or anything like that. I think it's going to be a hard fought football game. So if you put a gun to my head and say, who do I have to pick? I'd probably pick the Niners, but it would not shock me if it's a game going, with 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter.
All the pressure on the Niners, a little bit of pressure on Brock too, because of the elbow thing, of how he ended the season last year with just playing really good football. And now you got all these guys who are ready to go and to take on the mantle as this most talented team. And a lot of times, there's a little bit of high expectation that where you kind of have to, you're going to see some, maybe a little inconsistency. And that's, even the last Super Bowl team for the 49ers, 1994, you remember they were struggling and Steve Young got pulled out of a game because they were getting their butts kicked, and he got so mad because it made it look like it was his fault. And then they went on a run. So yeah, there's going to be some of that. Shelvin said he would take the over. He thinks 12 wins is what it is. And I think if you do that, your reasoning is that you expect the Cardinals to be dog meat. And you probably expect the Rams to be average or less than average. And the Niners play the Rams well when they're good. So I think if you think that those are 4 wins right there, then you only got to get 8 out of the rest of the what would that be? The rest of the 13 games. You go 8-5 and the rest of the 13 and you're good. So I think that would be the the recipe for 12 wins right there.
But the thing, my counter to that is, I've got high expectations for the AFC North, and the NFC East is not a they're not walkovers. So I just think that, but how does that, I'm not looking at the schedule, but I know, because it just occurred to me that while we must not have all those teams, because I know that the Bucks are in there somewhere. So are we not playing? Is it not just the entire? We're not playing every team in those. I'm not sure how that works.
So we go Steelers week 1,
Mm-hmm.
Rams week 2,
Mm-hmm.
Giants week 3. That's the first home game, and I think that's a Thursday nighter.
Mm-hmm.
Then Cardinals, then the
Mm-hmm.
Cowboys, and everyone expects the Cowboys to be one of the top 5 teams in the NFC. Then you got Cleveland, then you got Minnesota, Cincinnati, bye, Jacksonville, Tampa, Seattle, Eagles, Seahawks, Cardinals, Ravens, Commanders, Rams.
Okay. So we do get them all, but you still gotta, I guess now that I'm doing the math, you do have to have other teams to get to 17. Okay. So yeah, that's because the NFC North, the AFC North, and the NFC East, that's, with 8 games plus our, just trying to do the math in my head. Okay, never mind. Let's not. I'm jet lagged, y'all. Forgive me.
Yeah,
forgive me.
Try and do math in real time for some
Yeah.
reason is a little bit harder.
Yeah.
You get the Cindy Brady looking at the camera, deer in headlights look.
Yeah, especially when I'm not actually physically looking at a schedule. So yeah, but yeah, so everybody seemed accounted for. So yeah, I think that it's gonna go right down the wire. So 11, 12 wins. It's, like I say, I think that if you were to play that over, Shelvin, I think I don't think you're cashing by Thanksgiving on that one. So which is when I play prop bets, that's my goal. I want to be out of that bet as early as possible. So I don't like those bets that where like I'm going down to week 17 and 18 trying to hope that I get there. So yeah, I think they're going to be a good football team, and my hope is that we're able to stave off the early season doldrums, and that we can be just a more consistent football team from start to finish. But if I had to choose, I would prefer to be playing my best football in December and January, as opposed to, if I had to choose, getting off to a hot start and then tapering off. I would prefer a team that, even if they're gonna start, I prefer to start slow and get better as we go along, as to have it happen the other way around, where you start fast and then, are stumbling kind of into the playoffs. So
yeah. All right, let's talk about. Are there any? I know you've been gone for a little while. Are there any props that you like around the Niners this year?
Oh yes, I love. Let me pull them up real quick. I love Christian McCaffrey. His the over on receptions. I love that one. Let me see.
What is that number at?
I'm pulling it up right now. There it is. Oh, Prize Picks changed their logo. That's why I couldn't find it. Sign in. Pardon me, folks. We're doing this in real time.
Come on, internet.
And yeah, so season. Yeah, I love receptions. McCaffrey. Yeah. So his number, for receiving yards is over 599, so 600 yards. I think he crushes that. I think that's one that you can
Take it to the bank.
take that one to the bank. Another one I like is Debo and receptions. Receptions. There we go. Samuel. I'm just looking at my tickets right now. His is receiving yards over 665. I really like that one too. Yeah, those are two I really like. Ayuk, his number was kind of high for me.
What was it?
Let's see. Let's pull it up.
Because he had just over 1,000 yards in receiving last year.
His number is 799.
Interesting.
Yeah, he had like 100. He had 121 targets last year, and his number dropped up. That was with Kittle missing like 3 games, Debo missing 4 games, and his numbers dropped precipitously by like 2 or 3 targets a game once Christian McCaffrey came in.
And also he was like Jimmy's safety valve for the beginning of the season too. Jimmy was targeting this dude like crazy.
Yeah. And like I've said before, I just think that I've had a lot of pushback from people about Christian McCaffrey having 100 receptions. He's never had under 100 targets, and he's had as many as 140 targets in his career. And I just think that, dump passes, screen passes, shovel passes, any of those passes around the line of scrimmage are going to be kind of layups for Brock to just dump the ball off. If all else fails, just get the ball to Christian and get some positive yards. So I just think he's going to get a lot of targets, more so than I saw somebody said that they think that he could have 1,500 rushing yards. I don't think there's any way that he has enough attempts to approach that much. I could see him having a lot of receptions.
And it sounds like at least Shanahan and Lynch want us to believe that they're going to try and make sure that he gets a decent amount of rest and is not overworked. And I don't know how that can work if Elijah Mitchell is your number 2 back, because that dude is always injured.
Mm-hmm.
And so it could mean that TDP or Jordan Mason, get in a little bit more as well. Or I don't know, maybe they're just hopeful that they can do that, and it can't really do that because McCaffrey was not very happy going off of the field last year. Like when he's healthy, he wants to play.
Yes.
So that'll be interesting to see how they manage that situation.
And my thought is that of the two, receiving mileage is a lot different than rushing mileage. You take a lot less contact, catching a screen pass than you do, taking the ball 5 yards back and then having to get through the line of scrimmage. Just contact wise, there's just a different level to that. And I know in the Kyle Shanahan running game, there's a lot of misdirection and whatnot. And so it's not like you're doing a lot of like straight off tackle runs and, 3 yards in a cloud of dust type stuff. But even still, I just don't see you wanting him to be a high volume back. And I think you've got guys who can help. You can help redistribute the load in such a way that if you when you're trying to salt away games and whatnot, hopefully you can use Elijah Mitchell, you can use TDP, you can use Jordan Mason, in addition to Christian McCaffrey to close out games. So again, I just don't believe that he's going to see a whole lot of not saying that he won't see a whole lot of rushing attempts, but I just don't. It's hard for me to believe that he's going to be out in there just closing out games, we're going to be running out the clock with Christian McCaffrey off tackle left, off tackle right. I think we've got backs who can do that. Who can take some. He'll be in there some, I'm sure, but because I just know he wants to be out there. But I just, again, I don't think that dude is going to be carrying the ball 25, 30 times a game. I don't think they want that for him, really.
Since Nick Bosa was hurt in 2020, he has had 2 years with sack totals of 15 and a half, and I believe it was 18 and a half last year. If I said over under is 15 for him, where would you look at that?
I'd take the over. I would definitely. I'd feel, and again, full disclosure, I'm more of an over player than an under player. I don't like to be sweating. Sweating. I want to be on the side of a guy doing well and not like rooting against him to not do well. So I play way more. If the number has to be something really tantalizing for me to play an under. So I would definitely play the over because that's 2 sacks a game plus a little. So I think that wait a minute, that math doesn't work. Yeah, no. It's not.
It's about a sack a game.
A sack a game. Yeah. So yeah, you got me doing math in real time. That's twice. But yeah, I think he has a I think Hargrave helps because you've had to in the past just because of his physical stature. Armstead kind of commands a double team because it's hard to find any interior player who can physically match up with him one-on-one. Hargrave, it's my understanding, I haven't watched a whole lot of Philadelphia Eagle football, but it's my understanding he's somebody who has consistently commanded double teams in his career. And it was funny, as we were going along with the holdout, people started talking that nonsense about how Bosa disappeared in the playoffs the last 2 years. But if you look at how they blocked him, teams are like running like zone blocking schemes against Nick Bosa. There were times when they would have the guard and the tackle double him, and then you'd have the back or the tight end chipping. So he is, and my question about that is with him getting all this attention, where were all these other guys on our team stepping up and making plays? Because he had made the play. He made a play to give you a one-on-one opportunity because they were, so yeah, I just think that it's going to be real interesting to see how teams go about trying to block us because we've seen it. If anybody who's been out to training camp, like we didn't get to see it this season, but last season, Trent is like one of the best offensive linemen in the league. And him trying to block him and Bosa one-on-one is like, Godzilla and King Kong. I mean, it's really a battle royal. And I say that to say you're hard pressed to find anybody around the league who can single block Nick Bosa consistently. So how teams decide to block him is going to be interesting. And with somebody who is as an accomplished a pass rusher as Hargrave is, which somebody made the point, and I believe it's true ever since I've been watching, I can't think of, we haven't had a consistent double-digit sack guy on the interior. I can't remember ever having anybody who you could pencil in for double-digit sack. But he was kind of a combo player, so he would move inside, but he was more of an end than a tackle. But he did, you're right. As he got older, he did kind of kick inside towards the end. But that would be it. And I mean, even at that point, as he got older, he wasn't an explosive pass rusher. He's a strong guy and could push the pocket. But Hargrave is he's like a real athlete. in there. He's a short, stocky guy. This is going to be interesting to see how teams go about trying to, especially we didn't get to see it. I say in camp, but Hargrave was playing the right or the left inside tackle position. So it'll be him and Bosa lined up next to each other ostensibly. So how do you deal with that from an offensive line standpoint? It's going to be really interesting to see. And I think, you do that and then you add Wilkes's blitzes into the mix. I think the 49ers, we might be in for, I don't know what the number is for sacks in a season, but I think it wouldn't surprise me that, especially with the extra game now, that we weren't knocking on the door for whatever the number is. I'm definitely have to look that up and see what we're shooting at to put ourselves in the record book this season.
I think last year the Eagles had 70, and it was like by far like the most. But I don't know what the historical number is.
That is a crazy number. You're right. They had like 4 guys who were in double digits. That's crazy. Hopefully, we can get that kind of production outside of Hargrave and Bosa. We lost a lot of sacks with Ebukam and Aminihu leaving, and in the preseason we did not really see anybody step up. I know Jackson seemed kind of nicked up, so we'll see. Hopefully, 1 or 2 of those guys can step up and take advantage of the single blocks that they should be getting.
The record is actually not that surprising now that I think about it. 1984 Chicago Bears. They had 72 sacks in a 16-game season.
That was crazy. That defense, the Buddy Ryan, the 46 defense, that was, at the time they were revolutionizing pass rush, and it was so simple. I coached that defense for a long time, and it was so simple that, and it was counterintuitive from an offensive standpoint. The more dudes you put in to block, the more guys you made eligible to rush. The way to counteract the 46 was to spread it out and make those guys defend outside, because if you started bringing in tight ends and backs to block, all you were doing was making guys eligible to rush the passer, because this guy is responsible for the back, and if he's in there blocking, he gets to come. So that was the last thing you want to do, was like max protect, because you just you unleashed hell on your offense. So that it makes complete sense that they were that they held the record. 72. That's a lot, but it'll be interesting to see if we can because I just think I don't think we've seen any of the the exotic blitzes that Wilkes is allegedly known for, and because all I know is the numbers. I honestly didn't really go back and watch much Cardinal or Carolina football, because why? But he had like at points in time had like a 30% blitz rate, which at our highest, I think D'Amico Ryans, Casala hardly blitzed at all, and then Ryans had one season at like 15%, which was high for us. So 30 obviously is double. That's math I can do. It's double 15. So if we're anywhere approaching 30% blitzes with Nick Bosa and Javon Hargrave, I think that 70 plus sacks might be within reach.
We may have to do a sack watch.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, before we get out of here, and we will be back Sunday after the game. Wanted to just kind of tell the people, how do you watch football on Sunday? What is your routine? do you have like a, whether it's a morning game or an afternoon game, like, if it's a morning game, you do X. If it's an afternoon game, you do X. Like, how do you watch the Niners?
So if it's always every Sunday, I'm gonna get out and I'm gonna go play golf. I'm gonna have a 6 o'clock tee time.
Oh, wow.
So even if it's an early game, I'm gonna get my golf in. So I'll be back home by 9:30. If it's a Niners early game, obviously that's the game I watch. And my method of watching the game is thus: I let the game start, and then I can watch it and fast forward through the commercials, and I can rewind. If I know we're going to be doing a show, if a big play happens, I try to rewind and watch the key plays and be able to, I do a little grading sheet of, who made big plays, because I want to be able, for the purpose of our podcast, to, give players of the game and whatnot. So I'm my show responsibilities make it hard for me to like real time like Facebook and tweet about the game, because I'm not watching in real time. I'm kind of going back and forth, and I'm with the commercials and whatnot in halftime, I'm able to get caught up.
Yeah.
And so by the time the end of the game is there, I'm good to go. If we play a late game, I still watch. I have my AFC teams, and they all have 49er connections. Well, I've always liked the Ravens for some reason. I'm a big Lamar fan, or the Jets, which is kind of 49er East, and then the Dolphins, which are kind of 49er East. Those are my three teams, and if any of those teams are playing an early game, that's who I'll be watching. If it happens that none of those teams are playing, then I'm a red zone guy. I'll just watch red zone and then kind of hop in and out. But even if the Niners aren't playing, I'm watching, and it's the same thing. If they play the early game, we'll do our show, and then I'll go and I'll be watching either one of those three teams, or I'll be on red zone and just hop in and out of games if it's something interesting has happened. And then I'm gonna do the Sunday night game. So for me, Sundays is wall-to-wall football. I really enjoy the season, and then the Monday night game, of course. I don't I don't have a wife at this point, so I don't really have any responsibilities that would, not have me watching football during the season.
Right.
How about you? How do you go about? What do your Sundays look like?
When I was a kid, all of us would watch the game, and my mom would make breakfast, and it's kind of like a big deal. And then as an adult, I would go to my dad's house still, every day or every Sunday to watch the game. But then my parents moved to Arizona. They're near Shelvin. Actually, they're not exactly near Shelvin, but they're in Tucson. And so I don't have that to go and watch with people anymore. So I mostly watch by myself. Now my wife will sit back and she'll watch a little bit with me. But it's kind of like a different experience to watch the games by myself. But because of this podcast, it's actually a little bit easier, because then I can like mentally think of things that I want to talk about. I don't have to converse with people. I don't, you're still on texts and stuff with friends and stuff. But, and then, in our Discord, we'll have thoughts with the people. And when I used to be on Facebook, on the Facebook page. So that is always fun. But yeah, it used to be a much more like familial, communal experience for me. And now it's really like a isolated experience for me, unless, there'll be some games where my kids will come over and we'll kind of do like a big thing with food and hanging out and stuff. But, now that we got this podcast, I do watch the games with a little bit more of a studious eye to try and think of things like, oh, why did that happen the way that it didn't,
right.
So, but
it's different. I also enjoy watching with people, in a community. When I lived in Vegas, I'd go down to the sports book and watch the game, which is a completely different thing.
Yeah.
You got all the games on, and it's hard to really focus in on one game when you've got all of this going on. It's like, it was Red Zone before Red Zone, kind of on steroids. But, like you say, we're doing this show now. It would be hard to watch it with a group of people because I'm like really trying to to take it in and have something, try to come up with something interesting to say, to talk about when we're doing it. So it kind of works out that I'm kind of watching by myself.
Well, we will be back after the game on Sunday. Hopefully the 49ers come to play and play a good game. But you mentioned Red Zone. I haven't had DirecTV in forever. Like, I was just anti-DirecTV because it just got so expensive, and I moved over to Hulu Live, which is not actually cable. It's like a streaming version of all these channels. But you can actually subscribe to Red Zone for, I think you get a couple of other channels that I don't care about, but I think it's like $10 a month. So I will have the
way worth it.
I'll have the Red Zone channel kind of in the background on Saturdays when the Niners are not playing, which I haven't watched Red Zone in years because I was just off DirecTV. So that'll be fun. And then now the NFL's got that app where I think it's like $15 a month, and you get the Red Zone channel as well, and you get a couple of other things just through that app. So they're trying to do this a little bit more direct to consumer stuff with their product, which is kind of cool. But yeah, so we'll be back after the game. Hopefully folks will tune in with us and we'll discuss what happened on Sunday. You're only going to have you're only going to be one of the favorites, as long as if you lose, you're not going to be a favorite very, very much longer. So the Niners got to come out swinging, man. If we want the national media to be talking about this team, they got to come out swinging. Though, like you said, I would rather be hot later in the season than be hot early and then fizzle out. But maybe
I'm glad 97 is going to be out there on Sunday. That's all I know. I was really, really, Tuesday and Wednesday, I was kind of not sure if he would, if they would get it done. But yeah, it's great that and it sounds like, I don't know, I haven't heard, and I don't know if you've heard if they're gonna have him on a pitch count or what. But
the only thing that Shanahan said was that as long as he doesn't come to the site with a beer belly, he's playing. And he said, if you know Nick, he doesn't have a beer belly. So that's all he said. He just said he's playing.
Yeah. And I mean, he's played, I was looking it up. He's played like 87%, 77% of the snaps over the past 2 years. So he's played a lot. And I don't know, without a training camp or preseason, which he probably wouldn't have played in the preseason anyway, it'll be interesting to see what his snap, what it looks like in terms of going out there and playing. Because they were talking to somebody and they were talking about, well, making all that money, he should play all the snaps. I mean, bruh, he's out there sprinting. He's in one of those positions where it's all out sprint all the time. So no, you don't play 100% of the snaps at that position. I don't care how much money you're making, but it's going to be interesting to see. Hopefully they can, because the concern when you don't have a camp, I think you had posted something about what Lynch was talking about, those callus reps.
Yeah.
And you don't want is him to get some kind of strain, and then, strain a hamstring or a quad or a groin, and then, be dealing with that all the rest of the season. So
that's the thing that will just nag him for the season. So
absolutely. So, we should be able to excuse me, ease him back in. But as we saw, without him out, it looks really different without him out there. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So we'll see.
All right, we'll be back. Season again. This will be season 2 of our post game shows, and we'll be live here on YouTube after the games, and then the podcast, the audio will be in the BSPN feed for the audio side of things. So, for Rod, I'm Double G. We'll see you when we see you. Peace out.